Hi, we're here with Andrew Lewis, who is running for Seattle City Council, District Number 7. Would you like to go ahead with your 2-minute introduction?
Yes, thank you so much. All right, well, first off, thank you all for the opportunity to come here and to address the executive board. As a former executive board member, I really appreciate the opportunity and appreciate the diligence of this process in the 36. I know there's a lot of things folks would usually rather be doing with their sunny afternoon, and the fact that you decide to spend it here in the pursuit of building our Democratic Party is great, so thank you. So my name's Andrew Lewis. I'm running for Seattle City Council District 7. Grew up in the 36th District. My mom was a nurse organized under SEIU 1199. My dad was a heavy equipment operator under IBW 77. I myself currently work as an assistant city attorney in the Seattle City Attorney's Office. I'm organized under AFSCME Council 2. I'm a proud 4th generation union member and proud to be endorsed by the King County Labor Council, sole endorsement. So I'm running for Seattle City Council. I'm running because it's getting increasingly difficult for working class families to make it in the city of Seattle. I think that we need much bolder action to build more affordable housing. We need to be focusing on the charter services that make it possible for working families to thrive in the city of Seattle: parks, libraries, roads, community centers. We need to be doing a better job of maintaining the infrastructure in District 7. We have a very long list of projects that I want to be the hub around which a coalition can come to get something done. So the Magnolia Bridge, for example, is going to be decommissioned in the next couple of years. We need a plan in place for our neighbors in Magnolia. It's an essential piece of infrastructure. The Ballard Bridge is on the horizon to be replaced. That's part of a $4 billion maritime ministry freight corridor. We need to be proactive in planning a replacement for that. The community centers in Queen Anne and Magnolia are falling apart, and our neighbors in Belltown don't even have them anymore. So these are the issues that I'm thinking about. I look forward to your questions and appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. You can flip over the piece of paper, and I think we are on Hannah now.
Yes. If elected, what policies will you support to address the need for affordable housing and homelessness services?
Great. So we need more affordable housing in the city of Seattle at a broad range of area median income. So it's not just that we need workforce housing closer to the 60% area median income, or even sort of missing middle housing that's in that area. We also need to be building more housing all the way down to the 0% AMI for our neighbors that are experiencing homelessness. I'm a big supporter of the Home and Hope Plan, which is an initiative of the Enterprise Foundation. And it's a regional plan, because I think really one of the big failures of the City Council over the last couple of years has been that we haven't been able to elevate our homelessness crisis and our housing crisis to one that is going to require regional action, and that the Home and Hope Plan does that. So the Home and Hope Plan is this combination of state capital budget money that Frank Chop got from Olympia, combined with some of the levy money from the stadiums. When they renewed the stadium levies, they took some of that money and put it into this Home and Hope Plan. And then more of that money to expand the impact can come from the Seattle Housing Levy. And that can be part of this three-leg stool to start building more affordable housing at multiple levels of area median income. And it can be a regional plan. And we can go a lot further. I mean, I always like to use the proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. We need a regional plan so that we can go far and meet the demand for housing in the city of Seattle on a regional basis with our regional partners. So that is how I would focus on our need for affordable housing and homeless housing.
Great, thank you. Sarah?
Seattle has the most regressive tax code in the state, with the most regressive tax code in the country. Given the repeal of the head tax and the ongoing litigation over the city income tax, how would you raise more progressive revenue to help fund city services?
Yeah, I mean, it really is shocking that a city as progressive as Seattle has the most regressive tax structure in a state that's already extremely regressive in terms of how we leverage taxes. And budgets are moral documents. The way that we tax ourselves is a moral reflection of who we are. So I mean, I am very hopeful that we're gonna get an income tax. I'm a big supporter of a city income tax. I'm a big supporter of a city capital gains tax. You know, I don't wanna comment on the ongoing litigation that's happening right now, but I can say this: if it's not successful, we should make it part of our priority in Olympia to remove that statute that prohibits cities from leveraging an income tax. And I think we should be creative and say, look, we're just asking you to remove the statute. You can put in language that says, you know, only cities with over 500,000 people can leverage an income tax, or something where it's like only gonna be the city of Seattle, to try to limit it. But when we have these democratic majorities, we should say, look, give us the option to tax ourselves to meet the needs and demands that we're facing in the city of Seattle. And that you could even index it to say, you can raise this income tax, but you can only use it to pay down sales and property taxes. And even that is something that I think we should compromise on, to say, look, maybe we won't be able to programmatically expand what we're doing, but we can at least bring our tax code in line with what our values should be as a progressive city. So that's what my approach would be. I'm encouraged that something like that can be possible, since we got very close to the session to a state capital gains tax. We passed a progressive real estate excise tax, which is something that we've been trying to do for years, and we finally got through. So those are the things that give me hope that something like this isn't just talk. This is something that we can actually do.
Thank you.
Jen, given the city's reset of the new Seattle levy, the upcoming expiration of the city's bus funding tax, and the planning for light rail through much of our district, what will be your priorities in deciding how the city spends its transportation funds?
So, you know, sometimes people ask me that, they're like, well, what do you think the best decision over the last 10 years that the city has done? Or like, what is the city doing well, right? That's a question that I get asked a lot. And one thing I bring up is the transportation benefit district, which I assume is what this question means by the bus funding tax. So the transit benefit district has been a huge success. I mean, we as the city of Seattle have been able to essentially put ourselves in a position where we're a customer of King County to buy supplemental bus service. The result of that has been, when we want service, King County answers the phone. When we want to strategically reroute bus routes, some of which go all the way out into suburban King County will help us reroute them to accommodate demand for people that work in the city of Seattle or that are commuting outside of the city of Seattle. It's been a very successful program. So the first thing I would do is I would make the case on renewing the TBD, which is a combination of sales tax and car tabs, that it might be worth it to expand TBD to realize its full potential. Part of the reason is because while 8 out of 12 households in Seattle are 10 minutes away from transportation that comes every 10 minutes or faster, we still have 4 out of 12 that aren't. I don't know why SDOT doesn't just say 2 out of 3, but they decide to say 8 out of 12. But in any event, that means that we have public transportation deserts within the city of Seattle. And if we're going to have conversations about how we're going to grow, how we're going to expand housing density in the city of Seattle, we need to join that at the hip to our transportation policy. The Transit Benefit District has been a very successful tool to do that. So I would make the case that we need to keep doing it to make transit accessible. In terms of planning for light rail, I'm a huge supporter of Sound Transit 3, and we need to make sure that we have a tunnel under the ship canal so we have reliable service and we don't disrupt our legacy maritime community.
Thank you.
How will you continue the process of reforming the Seattle Police Department beyond the expiration of the consent decree?
Right. So first, I think we should take stock of the institutions that we've been able to build through the consent decree, which for years were only dreamed of by police oversight advocates. So we have a very strong Office of the Inspector General. We have a strong Office of Professional Accountability. And we have policy and procedures in place when there is an officer-involved shooting, where that officer is going to be put on leave, everything's going to be fully investigated. King County just completely revamped how we're going to be doing officer shooting inquests going forward in a way that is hopefully going to be more thorough and give more due process to families of the people that are injured or killed in police officer shootings. So I think in terms of moving forward, what we really need to be doing is focusing on building a culture of reform within the police department. So that means that we need to be hiring police that are reflective of the community that is the city of Seattle. We need to have people coming in with a mindset of being a guardian instead of a warrior for how they're going to conduct themselves as a police officer. We need to be continuing to prioritize and emphasize the hiring through the ranks of the police department of role models like Carmen Best, quite frankly, who I think has been a good police chief in modeling the kind of professionalism and commitment to public safety that we want to see from a member of the police force, and in holding officers accountable when they don't live up to the stringent requirements that we're establishing. Now, at the same time, I think the same way that we need to punish bad policing, we should recognize good policing. When officers are doing a good job in our community, we need to make it really clear that that's to be encouraged, that when officers are being professional, when they're following the rules, that's something we want to see, and we should honor that when we do see it, as well as admonishing bad policing.
Great, thank you. And then now we're moving on to questions, starting with Robert, then Alice, then Sarah, and
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I support telling districts to now too, and I know that there's good debate happening at West Seattle about how they're going to get trucks out there. What are some of the solutions you see in order to make that real? Funding solutions, other solutions, or make that possible?
Yeah, well, we'll start the timer there. Okay, so I think one thing we really need to take stock of in both cases is who are the partners that really benefit from putting in the tunnel, right? I mean, in the case of West Seattle, there's a big collection of property owners, right, that would benefit very much from having a tunnel go through, and the Port of Seattle, as I understand it. More importantly for me in District 7, or more relevant, the Ship Canal discussion. The maritime industry in Salmon Bay produces over $4 billion a year. They have a very vested interest in maintaining industrial littoral spaces. There might be some way to get the Port of Seattle and the maritime community to make a considerable contribution through some kind of special taxing district or through some kind of agreement between the parties, between Sound Transit, the city, the county, and then the Port of Seattle and Maritime Industrial Associations. So I think that we need to explore how we can bring more partners in, and if you want the tunnel, let's figure out together how we can pay for it.
great, thank you. Alice?
What is your perspective on single-family zoning and kind of maybe relooking at the way that we think about our neighborhoods?
Don't wait on me.
Oh, if I just start talking?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I grew up in a single-family neighborhood. I grew up in Ballard. I think that as we grow and we need to make space in the city of Seattle, that is going to mean that where appropriate, we're increasing the amount of duplexes and triplexes for an increased number of housing options. I don't support a blanket repeal of single-family zoning policies all over the city, but I do support us going in and really looking like, okay, what's the walk score of this neighborhood? What's the transit accessibility? Are you one of the 4 out of 12 homes that doesn't have accessibility to transit under the transit benefit district? Where are you situated relative to the light rail routes going through? So I would want it to have a nexus of transportation-oriented development, but I certainly think that we need to look at ways to make sure our neighborhoods are inclusive going forward and that we have a lot of missing middle housing.
Thank you. Sarah?
And would you support increased taxes on larger businesses in Seattle and or an impact fee, for example, on one-time redevelopment?
So, messing me up to not just say no. I think impact fees are really interesting because a lot of jurisdictions in King County use impact fees. Bellevue uses impact fees, Shoreline uses impact fees, Auburn uses impact fees. And I mean, those cities have development the same way Seattle does. Like all the cities in King County are growing. I do think that if a lot of the advocates of impact fees overestimate how much we can rely on them, I don't think that they're a dependable or reliable source of long-term funding, but I do think if they're project-specific and limited and low, in some cases, they can be very helpful to offset the capital expenses. So renovating community centers, for example, right? The new people moving into the neighborhood will use the community center, maybe a modest impact fee on development nearby is appropriate. School expansion, we have over 100,000 kids in the city for the first time in 50 years. maybe as we're expanding new brick and mortar schools, maybe impact fees nearby to a limited extent are appropriate. But I think a case by case analysis is important.
Okay, thank you. Ben?
I'm gonna ask you two quick questions, then kind of longer one, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Can you tell me how many homeless people are living in King County right now?
So it just went down by 8% is my understanding, about 11,400 some unsheltered folks.
Of those, can you tell me about what percentage were living in King County and working in King County before becoming homeless?
I don't know, because I don't really find that number to be terribly important. I think that, they're here, they're our neighbors now. Where they came from, frankly, isn't something I'm terribly concerned about. We're a major metropolitan area. People in the United States move around for all kinds of different reasons. I don't think it really changes what our reaction needs to be if someone is living in squalor on the street, and we need to have a strategy to get them housed, get them into permanent supportive housing, and have a public health response and a public housing response to the homelessness crisis. Like if someone's from, Milwaukee, I'm not gonna just leave them on the sideline. So I don't know, but I don't think it's as important as other factors.
Thank you.
Next was Matt.
So I know you've probably not done specific polling on this, but what is the most, I guess you could say, unpopular position you're willing to take publicly? No, like,
Timer doesn't start until I start talking. Well, all right. I wrote an editorial 2 years ago in favor of supervised consumption sites. I am still a supporter of supervised consumption sites. I can tell you from doorbelling around District 7, it's definitely a controversial subject. I don't know if it's popular or unpopular. Now, I just went and visited Insight in Vancouver. I can tell you that there's a lot of challenges that are going to be associated with instituting a site. One of the things that after I left my tour, there were 2 Vancouver police officers walking the beat in front of the site, and I asked them a couple questions. I was like, well, what's the police presence like around here? And they said, well, we have a public health approach to this, and we direct people to the site, but we do have 32 officers that patrol this neighborhood to make sure that people are going to the site, that they're not using in public. Enforcement has to be a component of having a safe consumption site, and that needs to be part of our conversation. But I am willing to say we need public health responses to public health problems.
Thank you. I have a question. How has your work with the city attorney's office helped prepare you for the role as a potential council member?
Well, I think one thing that sets me apart, not just in this race, but more broadly, is I have extensive experience in the Seattle Municipal Court. Seattle Municipal Court is one of the highest volume courts in the state. I think it may be the highest court in volume of criminal cases filed. The city of Seattle has a lot of power in criminal justice reform potential and initiatives through what happens in the Seattle Municipal Court, through what kinds of diversion programs we're doing, what kind of treatment initiatives we're pursuing. The same way that the Transit Benefit District can drive the behavior of King County Metro, our $20 million a year contract with the King County Jail can drive conversations around how the county does incarceration. I think that those are things I'm uniquely prepared to work with not only the judges of the court on, but also the public defense bar and the Seattle City Attorney's Office and the police department when I'm on the city council.
Excellent, thank you. Clayton, and then Liz.
It strikes me that homelessness has 2 components, at least.
Only 2, narrowed it down.
2 that I have in mind. The first is the physical reality. The second is the symbolic dimension of the physical reality in all its glory. The symbolic, and would you agree with me that the symbolic dimension ties into what people think of government in general in terms of the way their taxes are spent?
Yeah, I think that's it's a very profound way to frame it, just based on, because there's been a lot of conversations going on in the media and at the door, right, around homelessness right now, where a lot of people are starting to get to that broader level of what does homelessness mean in the context of the relationship of the government to the citizen, right? I do think that there is a very wide perception in District 7 as I've gone around that there is a misalignment between what is being paid in taxes and the output people are seeing from the government. What I'm very encouraged by, I mean, I only have a minute to answer, but I'll just say this. What I'm very encouraged by, though, is my neighbors writ large. They want to do something that's compassionate, that's going to get people off the street in a way where they're relying on housing and treatment and services rather than incarceration. Writ large, that's been the reaction so far, and that's really encouraging, considering there's some counter narratives in the news about it.
Thank you. Liz, please.
Andrew, so I'm interested in finding out what committee you would want to sit on and whether or not you would be interested in motivating community centers by maybe being willing to look at ending a long time contract with ARC for programming.
So I can't speak to the to ARC for programming. I'm not familiar with that, but if you send me some information, I'll take a look at it. In terms of committees, I mean, every 2 years we shake up whatever combination of departments the council members have in their committees. I think my biggest interest right now is doing something bold around housing. So a committee that has the portfolio around housing, public housing would be a priority. My background in the city attorney's office prepares me well for public safety if there was an opening there to work on the Safe Communities Committee. And I have an abiding affection for what the city does in relation to public arts, which is actually something that is not, it's not talked about a lot, but there is a Department of Arts and Culture of the city of Seattle that invests in a lot of really interesting regional initiatives, and I think that would be really fun as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Would you like to go ahead and give a 30-second wrap up?
Don't wait on me.
Oh! All right. There's like a new thing came up. Yeah, so, all right, so, I've been involved in the 36th District Democrat since before I could vote. I've been a PCO, I've walked precincts, I've donated Democratic politicians, volunteered for them. I really appreciate your consideration. I think building a strong Democratic Party is important. I would really value the endorsement of 36th District Democrats, and I hope to work with you and be very present as an elected council member representing you.
Thank you.